telling all sides of the story. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
Here is Senator Chuck Schumer expressing his fury over the leaked opinion from the Supreme Court. And he says it is the be-all, end-all, and it is war, basically. Take a listen.
I cannot tell you the outrage I feel at this decision. And the outrage I feel that Republicans who did it won't own up to it and duck it. It's despicable.
And he's not alone. That fury is also relayed to Elizabeth Warren. Listen to her.
Well, I am here because I am angry, and I am here because the United States Congress can change all of this. Yes, that's right.
And then Elizabeth Warren and a number of these other liberal Democrats are really taking it a whole other step further. Not only are they expressing and trying to rile up the base. By the way, they've never condemned the riots that took place in 2020, the Summer of Love. Remember all that destruction that took place around the country. And so we got all that as a backdrop. Now you've got the fury of this. And she and many other Democrats, including President Biden, who's never condemned the leakers so far. He doesn't seem to have a problem that somebody leaked it out. And now they are basically saying that this opinion goes well beyond even Roe v. Wade going back to the states to decide. This is basically a slam on gay rights. It's a slam on like segregation. I mean, you should hear all the things that they are assuming come with this decision, none of which have anything to do with this opinion at this point. Not at all. It's outrageous when they take it to all these other steps. Listen to her today. This is Elizabeth Warren. She was on The View, and she says basically every single right any human being has ever had in America, that's all going to be taken away by the Republicans. Boy, are they playing politics with this.
So when you read Justice Alito's opinion, what he focuses on is history. And he says, we don't have to protect access to abortion because historically we haven't had that access. Boy, that ought to make your gay friends nervous because we don't have a long history of protecting equal marriage. We don't have a long history of protecting interracial marriage. We don't have a long history of protecting access to contraception. All of those things that we have now counted on and said, that's the America we are, could potentially, under Justice Alito's own analysis, go out. This is the reason we cannot have a right-wing fringe court.
Yeah, fringe court. And remember also, President Biden took it even one step further. He said the whole MAGA movement is the most extreme political movement in recent American history. This is from the president who claimed that he was the unifier in chief. Is there anything unifying about that? Smearing tens of millions of people in one fell swoop. It's like the basket of deplorables comment. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Norman on line 4. Norm, your thoughts about this?
Hi, Rita. Look, I believe in the First Amendment, but if trespassers came into my house of worship, in my case a synagogue, while I was praying, I hit them with a chair over the head.
Wow, you're tough. Norm, you're tough. You wouldn't like bring out a boxing glove?
No, I would use whatever chair or heavy book I find to slam them over the head.
Well, now let me ask, and Norm, obviously, like nobody condones violence, but let me ask you, if they came there and they were peacefully protesting, you know, and standing, say, on the church steps and then started walking down the aisles, but they were peaceful. You know, they were vocal but peaceful. Is that okay with you?
I might still hit them over the head with a chair. They got basically if they're outside and they're protesting outside. Look, I'm a protester. I accept that they have an opinion. If they want to protest outside the synagogue or outside the church, fine. But if they're going to come inside the synagogue, inside the church, inside the temple, all bets are off. They're getting messed up.
Now, Norman, you mentioned that you're a protester. I remember you've called in and you've talked about when you were doing a lot of the anti-vax, anti-mask mandates, all that stuff. Were there ground rules when you guys went out and protested? Like, I want to hear from like sort of the insider on the protester, because as you pointed out, you've done a number of protests. Did you ever say, okay, listen, we're going to go out there, we're going to vocalize, we're going to do this, but we want to make sure we don't get into any trouble with X?
Right. Okay. We don't go after anybody personally. When we would do our marches, I mean, we marched from up in Times Square down to City Hall. We did several of those. People would be yelling at us. I had a couple of spitters or anything. We were told, don't answer. Just, don't, we would say, usually the answer would give them is, oh, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. This is it. We don't, you don't engage.
Wait, did you say spitters? Did you say spitters?
Yeah, we had a couple. I had a couple of spitters at me. Yeah.
Yikes, that's kind of scary, especially when COVID was at its height. That's really scary.
Yeah, they're spitters. We're anti-mandate. We're there, and they're supposed to be upholding hygiene and wearing masks, and they're spitting at us because they didn't like what we had to say.
Wow. Well, Norman, for the record, I'm anti-spit. Okay, so I'm anti-spitting at somebody. But Norm, that's interesting, and I like to hear your perspective because you've been out there on peaceful protests. Do you expect the same from the left in this case? Or do you think things are going to get out of control when you start saying, hey, show up at a church on Sunday, here's the different churches, or here's even the justices' homes? Do you think things are going to escalate, unfortunately?
Sure. They're going to try to, they're not going to stay peacefully outside the home. They're going to try to engage. They're going to try to go on the, on the person's property. They're going to try, look, I've seen when BLM did protests in neighborhoods in Middle Village, Queens. They went there because that's where a lot of cops lived. So they went there and they busted up some windows in some cars. They went up on people's, they looked for American flags hanging to pull off American flags off of people's porches, things like that. No, the American left is about engagement. It's about they have their eye on the prize and they're going to get it by any means necessary.
And some of the rhetoric, too, has been just unbelievable coming from this different group, too. Here's one of the comments, too. And Norm, thank you very much for the call, Norm. Here's one of the comments from this group. It's called Ruth Sent Us. And they're one of the ones who published, by the way, the home addresses of the justices in the opinion that they were not happy with in that draft that got leaked. And they say that we must rise up to force accountability using a diversity of tactics. That's really concerning when you hear that kind of rhetoric and you give away people's home addresses. To me, this is so over the top. We're going to continue with your calls, everybody. Do you think this is outrageous? I actually, first of all, think that all these Supreme Court justices deserve 24/7 security. And I think the bill should go to Elizabeth Warren and maybe Maxine Waters and Chuck Schumer, after hearing some of their rhetoric. And also Kamala Harris this week was riling up the crowd too. And joining us now is a great correspondent who covers the border and immigration issues, among a number of other things, Jennie Taer with the Daily Caller. Jennie, thank you for being here on the show.
Thanks, Rita, for having me.
Your reports, they're so powerful. I was just telling everybody to check out your Twitter feed because you have on your social media, you see these conversations with them. And they're coming with, in some cases it's just guys, in some cases it's family members. Tell me about some of the most profound conversations, because you're meeting them as they're getting off the bus. This is a group of migrants. Most of them don't speak English. We can hear you speaking Spanish with them. So they get off the bus. And what do they say to you as the reasons that they're there?
Yeah, so I will say it was really impactful to speak with them and to actually understand their stories. And one of the most striking stories was this group from Angola, Africa, who was traveling with young children, one as young as 8 months old. That really stuck with me because if you think about it, their journey was just extremely long. It's very different from from these migrants from Cuba who also have long and difficult journeys, and ones from Venezuela who were also there. I know the man from Cuba I spoke with said he was beaten by Mexican police and showed me the scars on his body and his face. As far as, what's happening with these migrants, where they're going all over, like you said, And they, I spoke with a number of them. They're going to Maine. That was a big one with the migrants from Angola. They're all going to Portland, Maine. The ones from Venezuela, like you said, we're going to New York. And you actually played some audio from this man from Cuba who was saying, actually in Spanish, and I'll kind of translate, is he was saying that he had a contact for his group that they were heading to New York. But then they actually, their contact fell through and they ended up deciding to go to Florida, to go to Miami, which is interesting because that was something that when Governor DeSantis in Florida got word of earlier about some of these migrants from Abbott's buses going there, he said, do not come here at all, had kind of a zero tolerance statement. That was the state of Florida's message to them. So it was really interesting actually speaking with them, understanding that they really aren't staying in D.C. It was very emotional for them. They were very excited. They were taking selfies. There was one young kid that got off the bus and was just taking videos of everything around them. They kept asking me what different buildings were. It was truly an incredible scene.
Yeah, it is absolutely incredible. I have so many questions for you, Jennie Taer, and we're talking to Jennie Taer, correspondent with the Daily Caller, who's greeting these migrants who Governor Abbott is putting on buses. They're arriving in the nation's capital. First off, do they know why they ended up in the nation's capital? Do they understand what the reason was? Did you get a chance to ask them why? Because we know Governor Abbott's doing to send a message clearly to members of Congress and the White House, too.
Sure. So that's something I actually spoke with a non-governmental organization based in Del Rio, Texas, which is the last stop the buses make before they take the 36-hour trip from Texas to Washington, D.C. And they were telling me that the buses are offered as just another option for migrants. Often these non-governmental organizations facilitate travel. So they will give them, opportunities. Hey, you can take a Greyhound bus to San Antonio. You can get a flight using this website through this airline, different options that they're given. And so now these buses Abbott has offered is another option for them. I'm not sure if they're aware, and I didn't get the sense that they were, that this is, something that Abbott proposed and that Abbott is wanting, to put migrants basically on Biden's doorstep. I didn't really get that sense. I got the sense more that they were just happy to be there, and that it was actually kind of a step getting them to their final destination.
What's amazing, Jennie, and there's a lot of layers to this, but you mentioned the guy from Mexico who says he was beaten by the police in Mexico. You hear of these extraordinary journeys that they take. I always tell people, I want people to come here legally, but I also understand why people want to come to this country. I want a more secure border and I want better protections because I care about the security of this country. But I also understand why migrants want to come to America. It's the greatest country in the world, Talk about some of these extraordinary journeys, that he went through. And I'm sure some of the others also had extremely difficult journeys to get here. You mentioned the one from Angola. My goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, that's a really big concern at the border. We're seeing a lot of drownings, actually, in Del Rio sector, which is very close to Eagle Pass, where that National Guard soldier recently drowned and his body was recovered days later. It's something we're seeing. Actually, I just got an alert from Border Patrol just maybe an hour ago that a body of a child who actually was from Angola, just like these migrants I spoke with who had drowned along with their sibling in the Rio Grande River. The tide is extremely powerful. The water can often be very high and also very polluted. And of course, what we know is that the smugglers don't care. Once they get their cash, they don't care about the fate of migrants. And that's the really tragic part about all of this, because it is so refreshing. It's so beautiful to know that people really value this country and what it has to offer. Freedom. You think about Cuba, you think about Venezuela, you think about West Africa, countries where people don't have the same rights, the same freedoms. And it is really beautiful to see. I always get emotional when I speak with them because you can just see it in their eyes. And it's something that unfortunately a lot of people here don't appreciate. So I will say it's a testament to that.
What about talking to law enforcement on the flip side who just feel so overwhelmed? I've talked to a number of border agents, and I know I'm sure you have too, probably many of them, Jennie, and they are just so overrun. They're so concerned of what's going to happen when Title 42 is lifted. What are you hearing from them in general about enormous concerns? Because it's already a crisis there at the border. We're getting these enormously record numbers of crossings. There's a lot of gotaways, not even just the ones that they come in contact with, like the ones that came on the buses that you so powerfully talk to. But there are so many of them that they just can't even keep track of them. And now they're about to lift Title 42, potentially very soon. And we could see those numbers triple. I mean, that's amazing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I spoke with someone the other day, actually, who said that most of the field operations are knocked off of the Border Patrol agents. And that's basically, they're used to that by now, that they are not on the front lines. And that's actually why I plan to go to Yuma, Arizona when Title 42 ends, because that's an area that experiences a lot of gotaways, like you said, as well as has the major problem of unmanned spaces of the border. And so you see people crossing there constantly. You actually see people that are wanting to turn themselves into Border Patrol that wait hours and hours and hours. Actually, I just had a source send me a picture of migrants who showed up from Peru in Yuma the other day, just about 2 days ago. And he said that Border Patrol handed them water and left and then came back a few hours later. I think they were still waiting about 4 hours at least before Border Patrol came back to pick them up and process them. So there is this issue of unmanned areas of the border. It's obviously taxing Border Patrol having to deal with this influx. And so it's probably likely going to get worse under Title 42 being lifted. And that's something that DHS is ultimately preparing for, they say. But a lot of the plan is really just for expedited processing rather than what Title 42 offers, which is expedited removal.
Absolutely. They seem to be preparing to just make sure they can get more in the country quicker and process them, as you talk about, as opposed to doing blocking and protection and all those other things. How bad do you think it could get under Title 42? Because people are describing it as just such a crisis. And that's not that far away. Do you think Title 42 is going to be lifted, Jennie?
I'm not sure about the likelihood given what's going on in the court, but if and when it's lifted, especially if it's lifted May 23rd, when the plan, when CDC said it would be lifted, I am concerned that things are going to get really, really bad. I don't know if you remember, but last September, there was an incident in Del Rio, Texas, where thousands of Haitian migrants showed up under the international bridge there. And that small border town with very limited resources was completely overwhelmed by it. Not just Border Patrol, but every part of the infrastructure of the city that had to step in to help. Those numbers, actually the NGO there is seeing similar numbers now to what they're getting to what they were getting when that incident was occurring.
Wow.
So when I hear things like that, it helps me gauge a little. I can't always predict what it's going to be come Title 42 being lifted, but certainly right now it's a very busy time. It's kind of this middle zone where it's hot down there, but it's not as hot as it gets in the summer. So it's kind of the prime time for people to cross.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. This is the moment. And if you think if it does get lifted, and we're talking just a few weeks away, that is going to happen really soon, if potentially. And it's going to be, I think, a floodgates, as you've talked about. Jennie, thank you very, very much. How can everybody check out the videos? I've been driving them to your Twitter. How can they check out these powerful videos with all your interviews with the folks coming off the buses?
Yeah, you can absolutely check them out on my Twitter. It's at Jennie Taer. Thanks so much, Rita.
Oh, fantastic. Great work. And let us know when you go down to Yuma. We got to get you back on the show then, Jennie. Thanks so much. Take a listen. Here's a little bit. The Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who was talking on Cats at Night about crime and immigration.
We have a case from the Obama administration. It was a U.S. Supreme Court case written by Justice Kennedy and three of the liberals, and I think Justice Roberts joined them, where they said that Arizona could not pass their own laws, couldn't really defend their own border. I think that case was wrongly decided, and I think the results are what we're getting now, which is where states like Texas and Arizona are being overrun with crime, and with human trafficking, and with drug trade, and we're supposed to sit by and watch as the Biden administration invites the cartels to expand their network and bring more of it on. That cannot be the right answer.
So Texas and a number of other states are joining forces and suing the Biden administration, saying it's basically a dereliction of duty because they just can't handle the onslaught. And the Title 42 hasn't even been lifted yet. They're expecting it to be 3 times worse when that happens. Boy, this is going to be a crazy time and a dangerous time for everybody involved. Let's go to your calls, everybody. 1-800-848-9222. Let's continue with Phil, line 2. Phil, your thoughts. We had to cut you off. Sorry, because we had a hard break there, but go ahead, Phil.
Right, gotcha. Okay, the deal is that the streets are full of these people. They're making $25 a day doing odd jobs in stores. They have no papers whatsoever. They're not E-Verify. Forget about E-Verify. You've got these people selling stuff on the street. They're going through people's garbage, picking up possibly saleable items, used items. You got a large number of these public assistance food stamp centers in the Bronx. I couldn't believe it because a friend of mine called me. He says, "You got to see this. About a 4-block long line to get in to apply for Medicaid food stamps." My point is, where is this mega money coming from? Well, the Biden administration says, well, don't worry, we'll pay for all these people. We'll give them Medicaid food stamps. We'll give them housing. The thing is, they don't realize, the public does not. The public is really dumb. They don't realize that all these new taxes that are coming up, the unrealized assets on rich people and all this is going to be used to support a $2.3 trillion budget just to take care of these migrants who do not acclimate into society. Many of them have been here for several months. They don't even attempt to learn English. They don't have anything in common with most people. They don't even have a place to live. They're living, in one case, in the Bronx on the Grand Concourse. You've got 10 people living in a room.
Wow.
Okay, this is no joke.
By the way, Phil, did you hear too? When Jennie Taer from the Daily Caller was talking about the people she interviewed, there were a whole bunch of them from Angola. From the African nation of Angola, and they said they're going to Maine. And I'm thinking, where are they going in Maine? How do they pick Maine? They're just and it didn't sound like they could speak English.
Wait till the winter comes. Wait till January and February come in Maine. I've been up there. You're talking minus 15, 20 degrees. And you can't, if you don't have a decent job up there, you're not going to get a place to live. But the point is, Biden has financed, he's openly financed tens of dozens of these not-for-profits in the major cities to take these people and give them benefits. They've steered them to benefits, which the taxpayers, you and I, are paying for. This is complete insanity, and it sets a precedent because you look at where these people come from, the countries that they come from. These people are not wanted in their own countries, a lot of them. A lot of them have criminal records. Not all of them, but many of them have criminal records. They're not wanted in their own country. And to come from Africa through South America, through Central America to the United States, boy, it must be pretty desperados.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, obviously not all of them do, but you're right. They're not being vetted. That's a huge problem. You hit it on the head, Phil, with a lot of the issues because they are not being checked. And a lot of them once they come through, first, they don't get vetted. They're not getting vaccinated. They're not checking the criminal history in the home countries. They're not even checking often if there's a criminal history in this country, let alone Angola. What are they calling the Angola criminal prosecutor to say, hey, let's look at your records, And then they're giving them basically, hey, here's either a cell phone or here's an ankle bracelet sometimes, most of the times not even either one. But if they give them something or they give them a notice and say, hey, come in and check in with your official in 6 months or in a year. And the percentage that actually do check in, I know you know the number, it's like 8 or 9% that actually check back. Because why? Nobody follows through. Nobody checks them. They're like, wow, I'm in America. Wow, fantastic. Phil, thank you very much. Let's go to Tom on line 5. Tom, your thoughts about this?
Hi, Rita. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
You too. You too.
It's really getting bad at the border with the weather getting warmer now and Title 42 being lifted. It's only bringing illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them. These people coming from 150 different countries. Like you said, I just heard what you said, not being vetted. And there's a lot of people that don't like America that are coming here. And they're gonna help create anarchy in this country. This is only going to help the communist cause and the socialist cause in America and around the world.
And how sad is that? Absolutely. And Tom, by the way, I was just seeing a headline that illegal Chinese high-value targets have just been arrested in Texas. So you know what that means? That means a couple folks who were not wishing us well were just arrested. And we know that like 42 that were on the terrorist watch list got arrested too. In recent weeks. I mean, that's a lot. Those are just the ones we know of. That doesn't include the 600,000 or 700,000 gotaways. So this is really a huge, huge mess. Great points. Let's go to Thomas on line 6. Thomas, your thoughts about all this. Go ahead.
Yes, I think that money is being filtered through the panhandle, down to South America, coming back in credit cards and counterfeit bills. And these people are, I live in a town where these people drive new cars and they're controlling all the cars and buying up all the real estate. The real estate goes up and the rents go up because it's easier to buy with counterfeit money. That's a great point, Thomas. You're right, because they're using a lot of illegal funds. And by the way, as we're talking about border and all those issues, there is so much in terms of drugs, in terms of human smuggling, counterfeit funds, as you're talking about. There's so much illicit activity. Great point. Let's go to Mary real quick, line 3. Your thoughts, Mary?
Rita, just, a while back, the news was reporting that a lot of Democratic senators and congressmen were advising the president not to do this. Where are they now?
Yeah, you're right.
What are they saying now?
You're right. And a number of them still feel the same way. They got a little sidetracked this week because of the whole Supreme Court, the leaked opinion, because they're all fired up on that. But you're right. They're still very upset, and they're waiting to see, because right now it got adjudicated in the court. What happened was a federal court stepped in, a judge stepped in, and issued basically an injunction. And it was a 14-day injunction, I believe. So that, that should expire. It was a couple days ago, so it would be in about a little over a week. So the judge basically said, okay, let's put a stay. Let's put it on hold for 14 days, and then let's hear the case. So they're looking at hearing the case, deciding what's going to happen. But there is a good chance that it could get lifted on May 23rd, or maybe the judge says no, and and those folks who are against it can convince the judge and do filings. And there are a number of people who are doing filings saying this should not happen. Texas and Florida and many of these states are doing it. So, and some Democrats, as you point out. In fact, I mean, it's amazing. It's not just, a number of the Texans, Democrats from down there, but also there's folks like Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire. she's against it. And she's against it because there's a huge fentanyl problem in her state, in New England. So, I mean, it just goes to show that basically every state's become a border state and hurt by the drugs and all these things. But let's see what they'll do. They've been voicing concern, but so far this administration doesn't seem to care. At least they seem to be still full steam ahead. The question is whether a court will stop them, and we'll just have to see what happens. Great question, Mary.